Thank you. Thank you very much. That was incredibly kind. I'm really nervous. I'm used to other people making my words sound much better than they are, so if you guys could please imagine that I'm Colin Firth or Maggie Smith, that would be great. I should first thank you guys for coming and say it's an absolute honor to be part of this, especially with the other speakers. This weekend, it's a privilege to do the same job as them, let alone share the same stage. And I would also just like to take a moment before we kick off to remember and celebrate the great and recently departed William Goldman, who famously said about screenwriting, nobody knows anything. He said that consistently throughout all the definitive books he wrote about screenwriting. His films will be watched forever, and that's how long he'll be missed for too. So when I was thinking about tonight, I thought that instead of kind of a potted autobiography, what might be more useful is if I just picked one project and talked it through, warts and all the way from the first optimistic chat to spotting the DVD in Poundland. I know I'm up here advertised as the writer of Mamma Mia 2, but the bodies are still warm on that, and they might be listening. So I thought I would tell you about the development and making of the film I wrote a little while ago, The Best Exotic Marigold Hotel. Not hopefully in a smug way, because it eventually turned out okay, but because it was such a long and difficult journey, and there were so many times on the way when it seemed like it wouldn't. And then maybe at the end, we could see if there's anything to learn other than dumb luck and blind persistence. So it started, like most of the best things do, with a nice conversation about something entirely different. The excellent producer Graham Broadbent and I were hanging out having lunch, and I was lamenting the fact that as I got older, the wisdom that I'd expected somehow to be visited upon me still seemed elusive. And I wondered aloud if when I hit my senior years, I would still be quite so clueless. And we laughed and carried on eating fish. A couple of months later, Graham called. Do you remember that conversation? He said, I think I might have something for you. Working Title had optioned a book by Deborah Mogger called These Foolish Things, about a group of senior citizens who retire to India. Deborah had written a couple of drafts herself, but for whatever reason, Working Title had let it go. Actually, I say for whatever reason, but I know exactly why. It's because no one thought there was any money to be made in a film about old people. And in that no one, I totally include myself and Graham. None of us had a clue, we just liked it, which might be the first lesson. Anyway, Blueprint, Graham's company, had picked up the option. There was a director attached, let's call him Director 1, but don't look him up, that's not his name, and a start date, but they wanted a quick polish before the shoot. I read the book, I read the script, I liked them both, so I went to meet the director. Director 1 is a lovely guy, I liked him hugely. He has a great way of giving a no. He'll say, I wonder if you feel, as I do, that this scene is running a little long. And then when you say, yeah, I do think we could cut it some, he goes, I totally agree. His work is not known for its subtlety, and the changes he wanted to the script reflected this. He had an idea for a scene where the wheelchair of a character we all hoped would be played by Maggie Smith got attached to a bus, and she was dragged through the streets screaming as she went. I was pretty sure I'd seen something similar in Only Fools and Horses, and I didn't quite know how to make that work, but I signed up to do a 6-week polish anyway. What I didn't know then was that I suck at 6-week polishes, or polishes in general. They require a specific and forensic skill to spot key flaws in the script as it stands and to fix them and only them. A good example of this is Bill Nicholson's brilliant pass on David Franzoni and John Logan's script for Gladiator, which introduced the notion that Maximus's goal in life is not power but revenge for the death of his beloved wife. Giving the film an emotional heft that was a huge part of its success. It turned out I couldn't do that. It turned out I felt I had to retype every line and rewrite most of them, including even the title. So the result was that after my allotted 6 weeks, I gave the producer and director the first 28 pages of the film. I thought maybe we could have a look at the first 4 or 5 now, which actually didn't really change from then to when we shot them.
Thank you for your patience. Your call is important to us. We will be with you shortly. Thank you for your patience. Your call is important to us. We will be with you shortly. your patience. Your call is important to us. We will be with you shortly. Thank you for your patience. Your call is important to us. We will be with you shortly.
Mrs. Greenslade, thank you for waiting. I've consulted with my manager.
Now, if you just stay on the phone for a moment and talk to me. Just talk to me.
Of course.
I'm not even clear. I mean, I don't actually understand what it is I'm trying to order. Is wireless the same as Wi-Fi? And what do either of them have to do with broadband?
Mrs. Greenslade, since the account is not in your name, before we can make any changes, we need to verify details with the account holder. Can I please speak to the account holder?
What?
I'm asking if I can talk to the account holder. Before we can make any changes,
You can't talk to him, no. He's dead. He died of a heart attack. There's only me.
Mrs. Greenslade, since the account is not in your name...
Lord Justice Walton requests the pleasure of our company. Had you forgotten?
I hate retirement parties. Crap cheese, crap wine, endless speeches. Why do people do that? Nobody ever said about a retirement party, you know. Well, this is great. I can't wait to have one of my own.
It'll be yours one day.
One day, very soon.
You've been saying that for years.
Said of Stanford was his bark was worse than his bite. But as the recipient of both, I can testify to the fact that neither actually required surgery. His relationship with all his pupils was founded on respect. We respected him, and he respected that. Indeed, to this day, I've recorded his response to the unwelcome news that I would transfer your children from I give it to you, I tear
This is the day. Graham? This is the day.
And there's an unlimited range of leisure opportunities just a stone's throw away. So as I say, what you're looking at here is very competitively priced. You won't see better for your grey pound. Another little feature, not necessarily right now, give it a few years, rails on the wall to help you get around, and over here, a panic button. In case of a sudden fall, brings the warden running.
What if we fell somewhere else?
Sorry?
Well, it's just we might not manage to plan our sudden fall in the exact corner where the button is.
Yeah, but...
And would it be possible to have the rail going through the middle of the room?
Darling.
To help us get across as well as around?
Could we have a moment, please?
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Darling.
30 years in the civil service, and this is all we can afford.
Would it help if I apologise again?
No. But try it anyway.
Could Dr. Mackenzie please make his way to Theatre 7? Dr. Mackenzie to Theatre 7.
Young lady, I want a cup of tea, and I want it now.
The trolley will be along shortly.
How hard do you have to fall to get proper attention? I've been lying here for hours. Not a single doctor has come to see me.
Now, that's not quite true, is it, Mrs. Donnelly? A doctor did try and examine you, and you sent him away.
What, that one? He can wash all he likes. That colour's not coming out. I want an English doctor.
Oh, an English doctor? Why didn't you say so? I'll get one right away.
Thank you.
Mrs. Donnelly, this is Dr. Gurjarapatadar.
Notes, please.
Now here we go with the flow of the girls you know, the ones singing Argentina and Mexico.
And after that, I worked as a systems analyst for a few years, but I just found it so dull. What I really wanted was to do something more creative, that matched... I'm sorry, on the form, they asked for our age bracket and the age we wanted to meet. And in both cases, I ticked 25 to 39.
That's right. So did I. Don't stop. Something more creative.
How old are you?
Early 40s. And, you know, my interests are travel, theatre.
Do you mean you were born in the early 40s?
Ah, Judy. I know what you're asking.
It's Judith.
Judith. Trust me. I've still got it. can't find anyone that wants it. Hi. I'm Norman.
This is crazy. You're crazy. You can't just up and leave like this.
And yet, if you watch me, that's exactly what you'll see happen. What's going on?
Your mother's lost it.
My mother never had it.
You talk to her. She doesn't listen to me.
Nobody listens to you. I still don't understand what's going on.
I just asked her to babysit and now she says she's leaving.
But you love babysitting.
I loved it last night.
We had pizza and stayed up late. And the night before? We had Chinese and stayed up late. If you don't go, tonight we could do a curry.
It's tempting, darlings. But you know I have to leave.
We know. Being here is stopping her finding a husband.
Another one.
Bye, Granny. Bye, Granny.
Don't let the buggers get you down.
How many husbands have you had, anyway?
Including my own? Mother? 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 Thank you.
Right, name the place, darling. Where you going?
I've absolutely no idea.
That's really nice of you, but it's not Chekhov, but it does a job, and it sets up the characters fast. And thankfully, to my relief, there were some laughs. Graham was very kind about the pages, if clearly and rightly frustrated that there were so few of them. The extreme weather conditions in India mean that you can only really shoot there between October and March, and so because of my incompetence, we were going to miss our window that year. It also meant that we lost Director 1, who departed for Hollywood, where I'm sure he's totally agreeing with people even now. Graham and I made a list for his replacement, at the head of which was John Madden, whose work we greatly admired, but he passed. So we moved only one place further down the list to Director 2. Director 2 is a lovely guy. I liked him hugely. But as he warned me himself, he's famously indecisive and terrible at expressing himself, which are unusual qualities for a director and ones that make for an interesting collaboration. At one point, he gave me a note so self-evidently baffling, he could only shrug and go, "Even I don't know what I mean by that." So thanks for that. But the script got better gradually. Director 2 wanted it to be less of an ensemble and more focused on one character, so I dutifully did that, even while disagreeing. But on the good side, he hated the idea of a wheelchair being dragged by a bus, so out that came. And eventually, we had something ready to go to cast, which is a thing, casting. You might think that it's no part of a screenwriter's purview, but you'd be very wrong. Today, I have no doubt Shakespeare would be asked if he could punch up Ophelia to help get someone relevant, and just think about whether she might be American. She could be studying abroad, Hamlet does. The unavoidable fact is that you can't make your film without the acting people that the finance people think that the watching people will pay real money to see. In our case, though everybody doubted that we'd sell a single ticket, it was clear that to even have a shot, there was only one person at the top of that list, the goddess that is Dame Judi Dench, around whom we should, of course, erect railings. But Judi is fantastically loyal to people with whom she's enjoyed working with before, and that doesn't leave a lot of time on her dance card for new partners. So I did a sneaky thing. I happened to be reading Richard Eyre's diaries about his tenure as head of the National Theatre, in which he talks about directing Judi as Gertrude in a production of Hamlet. On the first night, she sends him a card with a quote from Great Expectations, "What larks, Pip?" So I wrote the following scene.
There we are. Ah, hello.
What larks, Pip?
Well, let's hope so.
Actually, can we show that again? Because just out of interest, the guy in between them that gets on the bus is not one of our extras. He's just a bloke. And Bill, God bless him, just goes with it. Is that right if we see that again?
There we are.
Yeah, I've always wondered how long he sat on the bus before realizing it was never going to move. Anyway, a couple of weeks after we sent the script out, Judy's daughter Finty was reading it one morning at breakfast, and she got to page 18, read that line, and said, "Oh, you must do this, Mum. She talks just like you." Actually, as a postscript, the day we shot that scene several years later, I was sitting with Judy waiting while the camera crew got set up. And she turned to me and said, "It's funny, you know, because I do actually say this in real life." Which was obviously my cue to go, "Yeah, I know," and I did a sneaky thing. But instead I went, "Really? I had no idea." But there's maybe another lesson, which is right to get a cast, whatever that takes. So we had Judy, we had the great Penelope Wilton, we had some momentum, and the window for shooting in India was just coming around again. We all felt pretty good. And then to everyone's surprise, most of all his own, I think, Director 2 suddenly made a decision. He didn't want to do the movie. Since I'd spent much of the previous 6 months suppressing the impulse to bury my biro in his neck, I wasn't entirely disappointed by his decision. But it did mean that another window slipped by, that we wouldn't be making the film that year, and that we lost our cast, which is not good. Nobody was getting any younger. Graham and I regrouped, reminded ourselves that we'd actually always wanted John Madden, and now we had a much better script we were certain he'd like. So we sent it to him again. He passed. Director 3 is a lovely guy. I liked him hugely. His background was mainly in comedy, in quite broad comedy. So while I tried my best to write the film he wanted, we weren't a great fit, apart from the day when I heard myself suggesting a scene where Maggie Smith's wheelchair is dragged along by a bus. He loved that. He also thought we should focus less on one character and more on the ensemble, bless him. And so through the third year we worked in reasonable harmony. I was getting tired by now, and at those times we required the inspiration to come from our collaborators, which feeds the energy back into us. That wasn't really happening with Director 3, but after several more drafts, we had a new script to go out. And it took us to the next level because Fox Searchlight rang to say that they liked it. This was excellent news, as they're good people who make great films. They were lovely about the script, although like us, they acknowledged that it was a commercial risk making a film about elderly people in the third act of their lives. Unlike us, their solution was to suggest that the leads should be played by Pierce Brosnan and Emma Thompson. This was a tricky moment. I wrote a passionate letter saying that those actors would pass, and they'd be right to, because I didn't know what that hotel was. If they didn't want to make this film, I totally got it. After all, no one else did. But if they tried to turn it into something else, then it really would have no chance at all. The point was taken, thank God, and we moved on. Searchlight's next action, I agreed with slightly more to gently nudge aside Director 3. When that deed was done, we all had a meeting and talked excitedly of John Madden. Finally, all the elements had lined up perfectly. We had an improved script, some excellent casting options, and we were now financed by a studio. So we sent it to him, and he passed. As did another Indian window and another year. Director 4, I have to say I liked somewhat less than hugely. This was at least as much my fault as his. I was getting sick of the film by now. A 6-week polish had taken nearly 3 years, and I didn't have much left to offer. Also, Director 4 had absolutely no interest in it being a comedy, which on the good side meant that we lost a scene where a wheelchair is dragged along behind a bus. But also, we lost pretty much every other joke as well. He also thought it should be less of an ensemble piece and focus more on the lead character. But despite my issues with his vision of the film, I look back on my behavior in the meetings at this time with some shame, as I was so unhelpful and truculent as to be actually juvenile, although he started it. He's smart, though, Director 4, and there were some good things in the script. There were enough things for Judy to come back in, single-handedly torpedoing the studio's hopes of a younger cast, because who can say no to the great dame? Pep Wilson came back too, and others arrived, such as Tom Wilkinson and Celia Imrie. And there was a glorious day that I got a message I would come to regard as typical from Maggie Smith, that she would do the film on the condition I made it a bit better. But he was tricky and fussy, and a research trip to India revealed a fatal mismatch between him and that glorious country. As everyone here trying to make a film knows, it's hard enough to get the rock up the hill. But if there's a lack of conviction anywhere about what you're doing, you really have no chance. As the window approached yet again, I don't think anyone really believed we were going to go there and shoot a movie. So we didn't. And that was the end of Director 4. Churchill defined success as the ability to move from one failure to another without loss of enthusiasm. This is a standard I spectacularly failed to meet when Graham called me early the next year. So, he said, about Marigold. And I just couldn't. The horse is dead. I told him, stop flogging it. It's an ex-horse. It has ceased to be. He was, as all great producers have to be, remorseless as water torture. I was thinking maybe we should offer it to John Madden, were his last words, before I hung up. 2 weeks later, he called again. John, or as I like to call him, Director 5, was in. He'd read the latest draft, and while he missed some of the jokes, he'd found it deeper and more truthful than any he'd read previously. So there's another lesson here, I think. What I'd thought for the previous 3 months had been only backward steps, turned out to be partly sideways ones, offering at the very least a better chance to move forward. But I was done. I was very clear about that. Thrilled about John, Loved the idea of the film he might make, but the script needed new energy, and I simply didn't have it. Just come and meet him, said Graham. He's lovely. You'll like him hugely. So I went, and we met, and I explained why I was extricating myself from the project. There was nothing left that could happen between these characters, nowhere they could go, no arrangement of words in the English language that I hadn't had them say to each other 1,000 times over. I was written out. It was the first and only time in our friendship that John completely ignored what I had to say. And as he started to talk and talk about the film he wanted to make, I felt sufficiently buoyed by his inspiration, enthusiasm, and belief in me to agree to do just one more month's work on the film. Just over a year later, we wrapped production in Jaipur. I had been at John's side throughout the whole process. He believes that the director's most important relationship on a film is not with the lead actors, the cameraman or woman, or even the editor. He believes it's with the writer, and he proved that every day. It's useless you knowing that because he's literally the only director that ever lived that feels that way. So work with him, I guess, is the lesson here. He also wanted the script to focus less on the lead character and be more of an ensemble, and I never even bothered to pitch the wheelchair behind the bus. But maybe the best example of his touch and tone was what he got me to write for the ending. For years, the big climax of the script had been Bill Nighy running through the crowded streets of Jaipur, through the Holi festival, where people throw paint dust at each other. He arrives back at the hotel looking like a very handsome rainbow, comically out of breath as he tries to make a passionate speech to Judy, which somehow does the trick and she falls into his multicolored arms. I loved it. All the directors had loved it. John didn't. Let's take it down a little, dear boy, he said. Less running, I said, and less paint, he replied. I rewrote it. Less romance, was his note this time. I rewrote some more, then some more. Just less, he said. What do you want us to talk about, I asked. Having a cup of tea? Perfect, he replied. So I wrote this.
You're still here?
I missed the plane.
What about Jean?
She didn't. I had quite an interesting night, actually. I met the same taxi driver, but this time I let him take me to his brother's hotel, which turned out to be less of a hotel and more of a brothel, really. And they gave me this pipe. Said it was apple tobacco, but that's not what they called it when I was a student. So I made my excuses and left. I needed time to think. This city at night is extraordinary. I think the apple tobacco helped, probably.
I'm going to be late for work.
Right. What time do you finish?
I get back about 5.
Tea time?
Yes.
How do you take it?
With a little milk.
Right.
Thank you. That's John, not me. Of course he was right. The cameras rolled on draft 38 of Marigold Hotel, and there were a couple more during the shoot itself. But the work paid off. We had ridiculous fun making the film. Judy actually described the experience as life-changing. And when you're 78, to describe anything at all as life-changing is just massively cool. And then to our astonishment, people went to see it. And they saw it again and again. We had a theory that older people went for repeat viewings because they'd already forgotten the jokes. So they could laugh every time as the first time, like goldfish. The thing about a zeitgeist is that unless you're really smart, which I think we've established I'm not, you don't see it coming. But if you're lucky enough to be on that wave, to be giving people something they want and need right at that moment, you really just have to not screw it up. It's not for me to judge whether we just didn't screw it up or did any better than that. I remember when I got home from India, friends would ask what I'd been doing out there, and I described the film by saying Judi Dench and Bill Nighy fall in love while Maggie Smith wanders around being racist in the background. And everyone of every age was like, I'll see that. So maybe all the work, all the drafts, all the deadlines and director's notes mattered way less than the fact that it was just a brilliant idea of Deborah's in the first place, with a wonderful cast in a fabulous location. Or maybe, just maybe, in this business where we're all so endlessly frustrated by the process, this film is an example of the process actually working, with every iteration of the script that it went through just leading up to it being ultimately the best version of itself. I like to believe the latter, partly because we all worked so hard, but mainly because that means it can happen. And that, I guess, is the final lesson. Thank you so much for listening.